adrenaline. Yeah, I do just what I do, and I hope you let me in, yeah.
Once it happened. It was at 12th century. Yes, it's a story of a book and a feather. One day there was a heavy thunderstorm and heavy wind. The story begins with the scene of a talking book and a feather. There exist a mixed emotions of joy and grief towards the prevailing atmospheric nature. The book looked great with an immense joy at that night hearing the thunderstorms. The feather felt lonely and abandoned for the first time in his life. He cried and cried hearing the heavy wind blows. The delighted book looked at the unhappy feather and asked the feather the reason for being sad. The feather replied that it feels very scary and told, as if the blowing wind enters inside, the wind will carry the feather outside in this thunder night. The book had a moment's silence and said to the feather that all the windows were closed tightly and no need to worry about the outside condition. Then the feather felt supported and came back to its normal mood. To keep the feather out of fear, the book initiated some conversations to the feather. Finally, they ended up in talking about the book's steadiness against the wind. The feather asked the book that how the book could stay steady even in heavy wind. Why no fly? As all of you know, the books are always intelligent and the answers are ready with them at any instance. The book replied to the feather that because of its heaviness, it stays stable. The curious feather understood something, but again had a question in his mind that why the book is strong and the feather is weak. As usual, the intelligent book revealed the answer that the earth we live always attracts down towards it based on the body's massiveness. So being massive, the control due to ground pull is huger than the blowing wind effect. So he stays unchanging and obviously could not fly. At the same time, I move towards anyone who put more effort than my steadiness. Their effect on me is greater than the pull down strength. But on you, feather, the feeble body gets attracted less towards the ground and the blowing wind effect on you is higher than the pull, so you fly in the air. The feather understood the pulling action of an earth on the objects and the unbalances in the external actions on the objects. Finally, both were got silent and the outside environment also got shut down. So, today if you guess it rightly, this video is about the important subject in the structural engineering and its supportive science behind it. The important subject is engineering mechanics and it's an applied science in the technologies which actually describes and predicts the behavior of stable and unstable bodies in motion by its force. The supportive physics laws behind this mechanics are Newton's law of motion. As I mentioned earlier, the videos are not for learning the subjective theories, but to relate the educated theory and the application practices. Moreover, these are my way of understanding and correlating things on my exposure in this profession. So, it's not about the vast science topic engineering mechanics, but it is to know the necessity in acquiring the knowledge to work in this profession. The strong base of understanding the structure's behavior is the prime element of a structural engineer. The structure behaviors are formulated using the applicable mechanics derived from the physical science. With this story, we are going to relate the theory and practices of the some following applied mechanics concepts and its physical science laws. They are mass and weight, inertia, rigid body, forces equilibrium, and the most important, Newton's first law. All we know about gravity of Earth is discovered by Newton. Then he derived the 3 laws of motion based on the gravity theory. An object at rest will stay at rest, and an object in motion will stay in motion unless acted on by a net external force. This is the law. The interpretation would be the motionless book will remain unmoving unless it is affected by the external forces, and a moving feather by wind does not change its speed as long as no external forces affect it. These are because of the existence of the unbalanced forces on the objects. Why the unbalance? Structurally, the inertia of an object, that is, the inherent strength of an object, prohibits its movement from one point to other point until it is exerted to the heavy force than its inert capacity. It will remain in its position when equal or less forces acting on it. We'll now relate the application mechanics to the book story. Inertia could be read like the amount of resistance of an object to a movement by a force. The amount of resistance offered by the book by the density. Mass. Mass is the quantity of matters in a physical body. It is nothing but a stuff of the book. Weight. Weight is a special application of the concept of force, specifically the pull of the earth on the body mass. Book weight on earth due to gravity. Rigid body. Rigid body is a body in which a zero deformation or negligible deformation under the action of forces. When air hits the book or a small child lifts the heavy book, the book would not change its position or it moves slightly. Finally, these forms an equilibrium equation to find the unknowns in the structural element. The structural is said to be in equilibrium when all external forces acting on it are balanced. With this assumption, the unknown forces would be found using the equation sigma F is equal to 0. That is, the vector sum of all external forces are 0. Similarly, the other applicable concepts will be discussed in the forthcoming videos. If you find this video interesting, please comment below and subscribe. Thank you.